Welcome to Telly Talk, where we talk about what's on the telly. By that, we mean we talk about what's on our mind.
Except this
Because we're
isn't Telly
Telly.
Talk.
Except this isn't Telly Talk this week. Because instead of talking about a movie, we are continuing book talk, The Secret History. Go watch episodes 1 and 2. You read chapters 1 through 4. Because today, we are talking about Chapter
Chapter
5.
5! I feel like you have the same energy of me in the episode we talk about the new Spider-Verse movie. Because in that episode I was literally actually actively falling asleep. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
what you are right now.
I'm Tyler, and I've never read this book before, so you're getting my live reaction. And unlike last time, I didn't read ahead this time.
At least that's what he says.
No, I mean it. I confessed last time. I would confess if I did read ahead, and I didn't.
Yay.
No,
I feel
don't
like
fuck
I
with
feel
me
like
like
this
this.
one was a bigger cliffhanger than the last
No,
one.
it wasn't for me because I know Bunny dies, so I'm not like, ooh,
Yeah,
what's
but
gonna
who
happen?
kills him?
I don't really. It's the same end, so I didn't really care to find out. Like I care, but not enough to be like fuck it and read ahead. But
Damn.
I was really curious last time
Maybe
how
we'll
Bunny
never
knew.
know. I'm Soul, and I have read this book once a couple months ago, and this is my second time reading it. And I'm now diving more deep into everything that I've known before into what I am reading now, and it has opened my brain. And I believe this is now my favorite book. I love it so much, and let's just dive right in. Do you want to give a
But you're
chapter
like,
synopsis?
oh
Because I
boy.
gave the last one.
I just trusted you to do a better job at them. But yeah, I can try.
Just like slowly flip
Chapter
through the pages as you do it and kind of just like, 'cause that's what I was doing.
chapter 5. Um, Henry and Francis comes back into his apartment. Is like, oh my God, Henry, you told Richard we killed a man, and Henry's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And then
Because at the end of
they
chapter 4, Henry had just told Richard about them murdering the farmer from the ritual, and that's when it left off on like a cliffhanger into chapter 5.
And then they're like, Bunny's the problem because he won't keep his mouth shut. Like, he's not taking it seriously. He's just being, like, making jokes about it all the time. But they're like, he won't actually go to the police or anything. He's smart enough not to do that because he doesn't have an alibi for the night of the murder. Like, they could just say that he was with them. So then we get, like, a recap of when Henry and Bunny went. Where'd they go? Italy?
Rome, yeah.
Yeah, they went on vacation together, and Bunny's just being like a dick, but like being like this living place isn't nice enough, even though it was super nice, and making Henry like buy shit for him all the time. It says the more I bought him, the more he wanted. And this is just really freaking Henry out, making him feel really nervous, and he kind of like
Henry thinks
gets
that Bunny's like blackmailing him.
yeah, and Henry gets really bad headaches and he got one, and so he had to like go away for like a couple days and just like lay in the dark. And while he did this, Bunny, who doesn't yet know for sure about the murder at this point in the flashback, is under the impression they killed a deer, but like is kind of has a suspicion. He decodes Henry's like diary that he writes in Latin, discovers for a fact that they murdered a man, and that Henry said some like not nice things about Bunny in there too. And Bunny's really pissed and is yelling at him, and they punch each other and like shit's going down. And then they're like, he's not mad because we killed someone, and that's like a bad thing to do. He's just mad we didn't tell him, and he feels excluded. And
And that's hilarious and fucked up.
and then it gets into the part where they're like he ev- Bunny's just like making everyone buy him things all the time, like taking the nice dinners and shit. And Richard's like, so he's blackmailing you? And they're like, well, not exactly. That's just how Bunny is. It's kind of, but like now they can't say no, so it's like it's blackmailing, but Bunny doesn't look at it like blackmailing. And they're like, man, we can't keep can't keep this up forever. He's draining all of our money. He's making everything difficult by like not keeping his mouth shut about the murder, and he knows it bothers us when he talks about it. Like he can tell it's like a sore spot, so that's why he keeps doing it. Then Henry's like, I have an idea to get us out of it. There's that time where they all hang out without Bunny, and they go to a house or whatever. Henry and Bunny have like a big fight. Basically, Bunny's just in a really bad mood, and he's just like kind of hysterical, and he like keeps blowing up at people. And he's mostly fine with Henry, but then has like big blowups at Henry. But then he like frequently has smaller blowups at everyone else. Like he's just like really irritable and like crazy for some reason, and he's being more of a dick than usual. Like he's always like kind of like a dick, like teasing people, but he's like really trying to like find people's sore spots and like tease them about it, and like it's like pissing everybody off, but it's like they can't do anything about it because he has that like blackmail over him. It goes through like what is the number one sore spot that each person has that Bunny like targets, and then Richard is like, this is like really the motivator for murdering him. Like like we had a motive, but like this is the like fuel that like
And
really
then
pushed us over the edge to do it. And then Henry is finally like, I have a plan. I'm gonna get some mushrooms. There's some okay mushrooms and there's some not okay mushrooms, and they're like identical. And I'm just gonna make a frequent habit of picking the good ones and like cooking them for people and whatever. And one day I'm gonna take the bad ones instead, and we're both gonna eat them. But Bunny's gonna eat more than me, and he's gonna be enough poison to kill him, and that's the plan. And then eventually he's like, this was too planned of a plan. Like we need something that's more even more accidental. Like Bunny needs to completely choose the circumstances of his death.
he came up with the second plan because they needed it immediate. Because Bunny got drunk and told Richard because the entire time
Right. I
Bunny
forgot that
didn't
point.
know that Richard knew. One time Bunny got drunk and told Richard the entire
That
murder story.
Yeah,
And
and this was
so
like
he,
alarming because so far Bunny's never told anyone. So they're
yeah,
like,
and so
shit,
now he's like,
he's
they're gonna,
feeling ready to talk
he's
about it.
opening up.
How soon is it till he tells someone else, like his girlfriend or like,
Yeah.
you know, and then the word is out, and that's really bad. So the mushrooms would like take like a day to kill him, and it's like he could tell anyone in that time period. So they're like, we just gotta fucking kill him ASAP. He goes on a walk pretty frequently, so they're like, let's just go to the woods when we know the route he usually takes, and even though technically he could take a different route, this is probably the route he's gonna take. And when he gets here, we're just gonna push him over the edge of the cliff, and it'll look like he fell, and we'll leave the woods, and no one will see us, and no one will know, and it'll look like a hiking accident. But then Richard lives on campus like Bunny and discovers that Bunny had gone to like a frat party instead of going on his usual walk. And then so Richard goes to the woods where everyone else is waiting and is like, sorry guys, Bunny's not coming. And lo and behold, then Bunny appears. Bunny's like,
What?
what are you all doing here? And Henry's like,
This is my favorite part.
we're having an intervention with you, Bunny. And boom, the chapter ends. And you know that Bunny dies. And this is like a cliffhanger because, and that's the end of book one, like the first chunk of chapters in the book,
Yeah,
like
we're
the
officially
first
halfway
part,
through.
which I'm
And the
confused
crazy
about
thing is,
because I thought the entire book would be leading up to the Bunny dying, but if Bunny dies like right after this, what the fuck is the rest of the book about? How are,
exactly, we still
how
have like 400 pages.
how are we only like how are we halfway through when this
Oh,
should be
just get
like the
ready
end?
for it.
What else is there to happen?
Just get ready for it. Let me tell you, after like chapter 6, it gets pretty boring. It
Oh,
gets pretty boring, I will say. But we're just gonna
okay.
have to power through.
When Francis and Henry are talking to Richard about like how bad it'll look that these like rich college kids like did like cult shit and killed a man, they're joking and they're like, there'll be newspaper headlines that are like, teen Satanist
Oh, I
murder
love that.
longtime Vermont resident. And if we think this takes place in the mid 80s, that's like right when the Satanic Panic is, right? So that's like a historical context piece that like
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
impacting the book. I'm so glad we've like pinpointed that this is the mid 80s. Like that adds
I think it's
context.
like I think it's mid to late 80s. I feel like we shrunk it down even more. Oh, there was also something in the middle of this chapter that has shrunk it down even further.
They talked about how the neighbor was blasting the Grateful Dead. So I looked up like the years
Yes,
the
I did
Grateful
that too. I
Dead
did
was
that too.
active, and I found it was about 1965 to 1995 that
I think
they
I
made
looked up
music. So that
the
didn't narrow.
album or something, and it was 1969.
Okay. I was like, damn, that doesn't narrow it down for me. But I did look it up when they said that just in case it helped. I love
Yeah.
how we're like picking on things to try and figure out the year this takes
We're
place.
gonna figure out the year this takes place by the end of the book. We'll do
Like,
it.
yeah, I just have like written in my margin 1965 to 1995. Something that bothered me was page 183. It tells this flashback. Like, Richard is like, oh, I remember this happening. And it was like this night in the fall. And like, everyone, the gang had told Richard they were drunk. And like, this is why Camilla was like Camilla was doing something, and like Bunny makes a joke about them being like deer slayers or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and like checks out his car, and Richard's like, "What do you mean?" And Bunny's like, "Oh, they were driving around drunk, and they like hit a deer, but like their car looks fine." And I wish that that story was included in chapter 2 when there was like weird things happening. Like that would have been really fun because you wouldn't have known the significance of it yet, but it'd be one of those things where you're like, this is weird and I think it's kind of significant, but I don't know why yet. And like it takes
What's
place in the chapter 2 confusing stuff, and I wish that that scene like actually was put in there instead of us reading about it now,
what
because
a
it's not as interesting anymore to read about it after we already know everything.
what about that scene? Like him calling him deer slayers or
Yeah, like checking out the car and being like, "Oh, they were all drunk last night," and like it's like their cover-up story,
okay,
and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
you don't
yeah.
know really like why that scene is significant, and that would have been like a cool casual scene to have, and like to Richard that's what it was. And I wish, usually we get Richard's point of view, um and now we just see him remembering this, but I wish we got it in chapter 2. I think it would have been better placed there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. I just want to mention um a few pages before that moment
Hmm.
on page 181. Um Henry, I think, or someone, I think it was Henry. But Henry says that Julian knew
Knew
what
what we
we
were
were
trying
trying
to
to
do. That's
do,
the only thing I have
but I
highlighted
was
on that
still pretty
page.
certain. Yeah, Julian knew everything that they were trying to do. And later at the end of the chapter, Henry says, let me see. Henry says, or no, 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 that was at the dinner. Let me see. Henry, damn it, Henry. God dang it, Henry. Henry. Um, shit, Henry. Um, fuck, that's Judy. Judy's snorting coke with Richard in a Burger King parking lot. That's
that
also my
was
favorite part of this chapter.
that was funny as shit.
I love that. I love how he's like, I'm not smoking, but I will do crack in a parking lot. Yeah, here on page 239, Henry says, uh, Julian, or Richard's like, Julian doesn't know anything, right? And then Henry's like, oh, yeah, like, he totally knows. And Richard's like, what? He's like, you told him you killed the guy and not like a deer? And he's like, Henry's like, yeah, like, he knew that we were doing the ritual. He encouraged us to do the ritual, which goes all the way back to like chapter 2 or 3 or whatever when he was whispering with Julian in the hallway, being like, "Should we do it?" And he's like, "Do it, anything, all
Mm.
everything that it takes." Um, And he says, "You know what we're trying to do?" And the day after it happened, we drove to his house in the country and told him what happened, and he was delighted. Delighted that
I
they fucking murdered
No,
someone?
I interpreted that as they told him everything except the fact that they murdered someone, and he was delighted that it worked. Like they were trying to do the ritual and make it actually work, and it finally
But it,
truly worked, and that's what he was happy about.
but, but Richard said
What page is
he
that?
knows you killed that guy. 239. Richard's like, he knows you killed that guy? And he's like, yeah, he knew everything. And they told him everything. And Richard's like, you told him everything? He's like, yeah, well, I saw no point in worrying him. That's what you mean. And then the next day, Richard has
No, but he said he told him
dinner with
everything, and he says,
Julian.
well, I saw no point in worrying him, if that's what you mean. So I thought he didn't tell him they murdered someone because they didn't want to worry him.
I thought he did tell him. Because the way I look at Julian, though, like, I feel like Julian is like low key praying. He's praying on all of them, but he's really focused on Henry because Henry
Henry's like the
hangs
most
out with
like
Julian
him.
like too much.
Hmm.
And Henry, I feel like, sees Julian as like either a father figure or like a hero, whereas Julian sees Henry as like
Himself.
kind of, but he's also like fucking like preying on this kid.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. And
No.
so I feel like he just like wants him to do everything that he couldn't do when he was younger.
Hmm.
And so him doing this ritual and him actually like achieving something like this and then murdering someone, I feel like he wouldn't be mad or scared about that.
That's
I feel
that's a fair point. I
I think Henry would be like, yeah, we hit everything, like we did everything, like we have no attachment to this murder whatsoever. And Julian would be like, "You did a great job. Like, I'm so proud of you that
that
you
he
did that.
says
Like, you're so intelligent." Because he goes into the when Richard and Julian were having that dinner together, he goes into like how smart and crazy, like how strong and smart Henry is, and he's like, he would have been a great doctor, a soldier, a scientist, and then Richard's just like, or a good spy. And then he's like, haha, all of you boys would be good spies. Also, he says, all you boys? So Camilla wouldn't make a good spy? Fuck you, Julian. Um,
Julian's so
but he's
weird.
like,
He's
spies.
so like there's this whole bit in this chapter where he's like really it reveals like how classist he is on page 210. It's it talks about how Julian says justice in a
Oh, yeah, I
society
marked
is
this
when each
down.
level of a hierarchy works within its place and is content with it. A poor man who wishes to rise above his station is only making himself needlessly miserable. The wise poor have always known this, the same as do the wise rich. Of course, Julian considers himself wise rich and knows that it's foolish for a poor person to try and stop being poor. And Richard is like, where does this leave me when I am secretly poor and trying to rise above my station? Like, would Julian hate me if he knew the truth? Which is really interesting, but like, that's just so shitty of Julian to have that kind of attitude. And it that gets brought up because it says that Henry's really good with poor people, even though he doesn't treat them as equals, which I thought was interesting. It says Henry doesn't treat anyone as an equal exactly, but he doesn't like condescend them the way that some rich people do. So it's like he just talks to them kind of like normal people, like they're just like people.
I think that's weird that Julian doesn't. That really these people don't like poor people because I feel like Camilla and Charles are poor. Bunny's also poor, and Henry knows that. And Henry knows that Richard's poor, but Julian doesn't know Richard's poor. But I feel like Julian knows that Camilla and Charles are poor. We really don't know how rich the twins are. They never really talked about that. Like, they've been to prestigious schools, but we don't really know how much money they have.
For sure.
And I feel like at some point, I think some point in this chapter, it goes into how, like,
Oh,
how
in
they're actually
in
poor.
this chapter, I think it got confirmed that Richard is 20 years old, right?
Oh yeah, I
Which
put that
I
in
do.
here. He was
How have they been drinking at restaurants? Was this before that the law was 21
the
everywhere?
yeah.
Oh, what year did that happen?
Wait, when did you look it up,
I'm
look it
looking it
up.
up. 1984, the legal drinking age in the United States was set to 21. Oh
Okay,
my
so it
god.
happens in probably like
1983?
1982 or
Oh my
1983.
god.
Oh my god, we're narrowing it
Prior to
down.
1984, some states had lowered their drinking age to 18, 19, or 20. Wait, what was Vermont drinking
Oh yeah,
age?
because it's a state thing.
1980. In 1980, the legal drinking age in Vermont was 18. However, it was raised to 21 effective July 1st, 1986. 1986?
Oh, okay. I think this is happening in 1985.
Dude, we like locked in on 1985 for this.
Because it's between probably 1983 and 1985. Like, we have a short 2 year span that this is probably happening.
Dude,
Because it does happen in a year, so it has to be like 1983 to 1984 or 1984 to
I think we
1985.
like locked in on this taking place like 1984 to 1985. Like that's cool as fuck.
Wow, we really did that. We really did
I
that.
wonder if anyone else who's read
I'm
this
proud of
book has
us.
done that detective work on it because we've been like picking up
I'm
everything that they mention and looking up
I
the
haven't
year.
seen anything.
Like I wonder what year other
I
people
haven't
read this and
seen.
think this takes place in. Like people just read this and they're just like, "Oh, the 70s ish." And they just like are content with that and
Like,
we're
what
like,
I've looked
"No.
up.
We're going to figure out the exact fucking year using everything at our disposal."
When I looked at the time period the first time I read it, it only said the 80s. Like, that's people concluded that it was specifically the 80s, but didn't narrow it down to an exact year.
Nah, we're just
But
fucking cool like
1984
that.
to 1985. Yeah, we're so cool. We're so cool. Someone post into Reddit about us and tag our video, please.
Please. My
Please, we need
My
clout.
next note going through the chapter is that on page 192, it's all about how Bunny isn't mad because he has like a moral issue with them killing anyone. He's mad because he feels left out and like that's wronged him somehow that they didn't tell him that he wasn't
Yes.
included in killing someone. And I think that that's so stupid that he's crashing out. Like he's literally crashing the fuck out because he feels excluded by his little Greek friend group who killed a man without him.
It's like, you guys killed someone without me? How could you? I'm gonna gouge his eyes out.
Like this is a ridiculous character. Like truly.
Also, I want to say, farther down in that page, when they were in Italy, they got paranoid because right after Bunny found out, this like German guy started following them around, and Henry got like super paranoid that they literally moved hotels.
Hmm.
And they like never saw him again. I don't really understand the point of that. I guess it's just like for paranoia and stuff, but I just think that's really interesting that they thought just some random German man was so interested in their murder. Also, I talked about last episode that we found out that Bunny's actually poor, like his family's bankrupt, and I said something along the lines of like, even if they were rich, I don't think his parents would ever give Bunny any money, like whatsoever. And that's confirmed in this chapter on page 194. And like the bottom, it says Henry's talking to Richard about Bunny, and he's like, his parents sent him to all these schools, but they never gave him any money for any books or anything. Like he literally had to fend for himself. His parents don't give him a cent, like ever. So he went to all these schools and had to rely on other people to buy his books or steal them. And I just think that's crazy that even if they were rich, even if they used to be rich, they never gave any of their kids money. Because it said that the Cochrans did send their sons to the most expensive schools, but they let them fend for themselves once they were there. It's like they don't give a shit about their kids at all.
Yeah, it compares it to like animals who just like get like reptiles or something who just like hatch their eggs and just are like, okay, go fend for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's like what, 6 of them or
Yeah,
something?
he has like
Or
he has like
5?
four brothers, right?
Yeah. Which is a lot. And so that's how Bunny kind of turned into like the way he is now, because this from him not receiving any money, he relies on other people to like get things for him. And so he never really sees anything wrong with that, and he never realized that he should pay people back because he wasn't like he was born in like a blue blood family, so like being apologetic or you know returning the favor really never came across his mind, so he just never did anything, gave anything back. And so he's always just been doing this for years and years and years. And I can't wait for you to find out how old Bunny is.
Wait, find out what?
Nothing.
You asshole. Further down on that page, I did some math. You're gonna love this. It says, I think Henry's talking to Richard about his situation in the winter, and it says, I think you might have died in that warehouse rather than wire one of us for a couple $100.
Yes, I love
That's
that quote.
an infinitesimal sum. It doesn't matter. I'm sure we shall have spent 2 or 3 times that on Bunny by the end of next week. So 2 or 3 times that. Let's go with 3 times that. A couple $100. $200 times 3 is $600. $600 a week on Bunny in 1985. Do you know what that's worth in 2025?
Like
About two thousand
$3,000.
dollars.
Dang it. Yeah, that's a week?
They spend
A
on Bunny a
week?
week. They spend $1,797 on Bunny.
And it's mostly
Mostly
food.
food. They take him to the fancy ass restaurants and he pigs out.
He orders a big soup bowl of caviar.
Something fun on page 197 is Francis is like, you want to play some euchre? And I thought that was funny because I never heard of euchre growing up, and since coming to Michigan, it's a big thing in Michigan. Everyone plays euchre, and it's like all anyone fucking talks about. It's the most popular card game, and
What the fuck is
exactly,
euchre?
it's a Michigan thing. They play it a little bit in Ohio, I've discovered,
He's not even from
and
Euchre. Michigan, fuck.
right, and like Mike, I was just in Ohio with my family, and I was talking about how everyone plays it in Michigan, and my aunt and uncle and cousins in Ohio love card games so much, and so they know how to play it, and they taught me, and I've been meaning to learn because everyone in Michigan plays euchre. It's like the pastime, and it's 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 like a really casual game. Like it's once you get it, it's a type of game you can play like really casually while like having a conversation, like Uno, you know what I mean? But to get it, it's kind of confusing. Like I've my brain has never been so confused during a card game. But like once you get it, you get it.
My
It's just like it's hard to grasp, at least for me. And my cousins who live in like West Virginia now, they were like, "Yeah, we love to play euchre. We have some friends who like moved there in our neighborhood from Michigan, so they knew how to play. So we started playing it with them like every week." Because they're from Michigan, and it's just such a Michigan thing. And I was like, why are these rich kids from Vermont know how to play euchre? But then I remembered they're not from Vermont. So where was Francis from again?
Austin
Well,
or
I don't
New
know.
York.
I don't know if it's a thing in the Northeast, but Richard sure as hell should know how to play euchre, being from California. I imagine.
My friend taught me how to play Phase 10 the other day,
Oh my god.
and that's a complicated game. But she didn't. I was like, we should play left, right, center. And she's like, what's left, right, center? And I was like, you don't know left, right, center? That's
My
crazy.
my girlfriend taught me how to play Skippo today, and that was fun.
I've heard
That
of
was fun.
that. My one of my favorite quotes, parts of this chapter, was on page 179. The whole gang was going to Henry's house after they murdered that guy, and they just walked in, and Bunny was just sitting there, and he started screaming like a fucking girl. And the only thing that got him to shut up was Camilla throwing an
I
ashtray
love
at him.
Camilla.
I love her. She was like fully mute at this point because she was like so traumatized. And she picked up a glass ashtray and threw it square at his chest, and it made him shut up. Just imagine that. It's so
So,
funny. It's so good.
okay,
I love
so
her so
something that
much.
this chapter did, in I think, is until page 226, I am under the impression that we don't know for a fact that they murder Bunny. It's implied up until this point. But like I said at the beginning, it's like they it's never established that like they intentionally kill Bunny. It's like it could have been an accident maybe, you know what I'm saying? Or like it
Yeah.
was unclear. We just know that Bunny had died, and obviously there's a lot of things that we know leading up to it where they're having problems with Bunny. But like one can imagine that they murder him. It's very implied, but we don't know for sure until page 226, I believe, when Richard says religious slurs, temper tantrums, insults, coercion, debt, all petty things, really, irritants, too minor, it would seem, to move 5 reasonable people to murder. But if I dare say it, it wasn't until I helped to kill a man that I realized how elusive and complex an act of murder can actually be, not necessarily attributable to one dramatic motive. And I was like, holy shit. Like, it's just been like kind of vague and implied up until now. And he just comes out and is like, yeah, the 5 of us murder Bunny. And I was just like, god damn. But the reason I skipped ahead to that was because on page 198 was a really big, again, an implication that they're going to murder Bunny. Henry says they're complaining about Bunny not keeping his mouth shut and like running them dry of money by blackmailing them. And Henry says, I can get us out of it, I think, but that depends on the exact opportunity presenting itself, and for that we'll have to wait. I suppose it also depends, to a certain extent, on how much, in the end, we are willing to do. And then he just moves on to the card game, which is just like, that's a fucking crazy thing to say. And that was like, holy shit, Henry's ready to murder this guy.
Henry's been ready to murder Bunny. He just needed a reason to.
Like, that quote really got me. And I can't believe that, like, up until page 226, it was like, I think they murder Bunny, but, like, it's not confirmed technically. And then Richard just comes out and is like, yeah, so the 5 of us murder Bunny.
I'm surprised you haven't questioned that they definitely for sure kill him within April or May. And the beginning of the book starts with the snow in the mountains was
Listen,
melting.
listen. I live in Michigan. I know what the snow can do.
And it
I know what the
snows in
snow can do in
May.
April. It can surely snow in April. And they live in Vermont in the mountains. I'm sure it can snow in April. May's pushing it. This is the episode where I dox myself. Everyone, everyone, I officially live in Michigan.
What? Okay, I would like to say I want to talk about this more near the end of the chapter, but I kind of just want to say it now. I feel like even after everything that's been happening, Richard is still not a part of the friend group. Like I feel like Henry, especially, doesn't see Richard as a part of the group because there's points throughout the chapter where they're like it feels like there's a wall between them. And I feel like it is because of he wasn't there at the murder, so he shouldn't be like trying to attach
Yeah,
himself to it, even though
I
Richard
do think
wants
they're
to
trying to
help them.
protect him to an
Like,
extent because I think they see him as like not fully a part of it because he didn't do the ritual with them and wasn't there at the murder. But I think they're that's like
yeah.
an emotional factor, and then I think their logical reasoning because they're logical people and they need like a, they need to put a reason behind it is that they want to protect Richard from being involved in the murder when he doesn't have to be.
But then, like, why did they
Right?
tell him? You know, because like even Henry told him, and everyone else was like, "Why the fuck did you do that?" We decided not to because on page 199 when they're playing cards, Richard's like he's like thinking about everything that's just happened, and I think he's just like about to leave or something, and He says, I suppose if I had a moment of doubt at all, it was then, as I stood in that cold, eerie stairwell looking back at the apartment from which I had come. Who were these people? How well did I know them? Could I trust any of them? Really? When it came down to it? Why, of all these people, had they chosen to tell me? And he's like, it's funny thinking back now, I realize at this particular point, as I stood there, uh, was the one point at which I might have chosen to do something very different from what I actually did. But of course, I didn't see this as a crucial moment from what it was. I suppose we never do. Instead, I only yawned and shook myself from the momentary daze, and they came upon me and went down the stairs. So, also, like, throughout the chapter, he was like, why? Like, I have the possibility to just go to the police and end all of this. I have the possibility to, like, go to Bunny myself and be like, hey, I know, please, stop. Like, please, I can stop this myself. Like, I can do this. Like, there's multiple points where he's just like, like, what am I even doing here? Like, who? I don't even know these people, really. And it feels like he's, like, not even attached to these people, really. He's just, like, someone, he's kind of just like a viewer.
Yeah,
Literally, I feel like it's more of I like I low key feel like it's more of a parasocial relationship than an actual real one.
but it's like there was that scene in this chapter where they hung out with him without Bunny, where like they all like went on a drive together, and like they do hang out with him a lot. Like he is part of the friend group. It's just like there is a wall still between them at the same time.
I feel like whenever they hang out, like all together, it always feels like a last minute decision, and it always feels like they all get together and they're like, oh, should we invite Richard? Yeah, we should probably invite Richard to this, and because like it's when he's at that one party or something, or no, he's just like in his room like drugged up on sleep pills, and Camilla comes to his room and is like, "Hey, wanna go for a drive?" And then Richard's like, "She's so hot. Damn, wanna go for a drive with her?" And then he goes to the car and Francis is there and he's like, "Oh, damn, it's a group thing." And then they go off and like have a little chat all together. And I think that's strange that they, because I feel like every time they do hang out, there's always just like something they have to
Speaking of
talk
that,
about.
can we talk about the Richard and Camilla kiss?
Which one?
Page 237.
Can I mention something before that? I feel like also it's confirmed in this chapter, I think, that Camilla and Henry both have feelings for each other, which is crazy. But also I feel like Francis and Camilla have done things together because they're always together. Like whenever like we you see it when the first time you meet really Camilla and Francis, they're together and they invite him to the countryside house. And they're together and they drive together. And then they did the same when they asked Richard to come for the drive. And I feel like they've had those like little moments throughout the book. I feel like they just like hooked up once and then Camilla realized that Francis is too gay for her and like put a wall there. And then she likes dark and brooding instead, and so she likes Henry more. Um, but Henry seemed like a monogamous guy, and so he's like
What?
not
What
pushing
page did
for
they
that
kiss on? I can't
relationship.
find it.
Um, I also want to talk about the unfortunate incest.
Oh,
It's on
is it actually?
237. You might be in South America.
I was going to talk about 237, but I don't. That's not when they kiss. But I was going to talk
Wait,
about that because she. So they're hanging out together in
no,
his
it's
room,
on
and she's like, we could be okay. We could be in South America right
247.
now, and he's like, like guys could have gotten sick or been shot. She goes, I can think of worse things, and then glances at him sideways. And what did she mean by that?
Actually, false. It's
What did she mean by that
261.
quote? She
What did
said
what happened? When?
237.
257?
She said Richard's like, if you went to South America, you could have gotten sick or been shot. And she goes, I can think of worse things, with a brief sideways glance that pierced me to the heart. What did she mean by that?
Um,
It
rape?
just it just feels weird. I don't know. It's just I didn't know it was a weird. It feels like a weird thing to say in response.
I mean, the first thing that I could think of
I know,
as
but
being a
like
woman,
that just
it's just rape.
it doesn't it doesn't feel like what she's saying.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
not like
know.
the vibe I'm getting from that quote is her being like, "Oh yeah, it could be raped."
I mean, it's the vibe I'm
Okay.
getting.
Because she's talking about how great it would have been there, and Richard's like, no, what if something bad happened? So I don't know. It just seemed like a weird thing for her to say. When was it confirmed that she likes
I
Henry?
don't know. I forget where, but it was like something small, or maybe it was just like a TikTok I saw.
I wanted to talk about page like 200, like 199 to 201. They're talking about um like their assignment. Richard's talking about how they have an assignment to like write in Greek because the goal of that is like if you can actually write fluently in Greek instead of translating one word at a time, then you can like actually think in Greek. And that's really cool because you think differently when you're like fluent in another language because or even when you're not fluent, just like when you're trying to speak another language without translating word by word, you think differently because you're like confined to what you know in that language. And it's like really true and fascinating. Like people's entire personalities are different depending on which language of the two languages that they're speaking because they can express themselves like more in a more authentic way in one language than the other. And
It's really
it
hard
is.
to think in another language when you're not fluent in it. As someone who studied this a language for 3 years, I I tried so hard to like only specifically think in that language, and it slowed me down so
Yeah,
much. And it was
it's so hard.
so
It's
hard.
really hard.
So hard.
Just I'm minoring in teaching English as a second language, and it's extremely difficult for students in school to be taking classes that are taught in English when English is their second language because they're having to like think and write in English and they can't express themselves the way that like they really could. Like they can under let's say it's like they're writing about science. Like they could understand the science like conceptually, but like they can't explain it in English because it's just like they're just too confined. Like they don't have the words to talk about it. And it just sucks. And even
Yeah.
just like on an emotional level, like if they have to write like a poem or a narrative, they don't have like the emotional words in English to express themselves the way that they want to when they could like write beautifully in their native language. And then the next thing I thought was interesting is it essentially establishes that it's the opposite for Henry. That Henry's English is like he speaks it as a second language, like it's formal and like rigid. Um, but his Greek is like fluent and confident and like witty. Like his personality comes out when he speaks Greek, and that's like actually confident and fluent. And that's just fascinating to me that he's so good at his Greek that
Oh
it's
yeah,
like his Greek is his first language and English is his second language.
cause isn't it like whenever he
Yeah,
talks to Julian, they talk in Greek, and you kind of hear it like when he calls him on the phone, he like
yeah,
perks up and he's like
exactly.
super happy and
Which is
stuff
like
when he
exactly what
talks
you
to
see if
him.
two people speak the same native language. It's like, oh, I can like finally express myself and talk this native language. And for Henry, it's like Greek is his native language and English is his second language, and it's fascinating to me. That's like one of my favorite. It's in this chapter. I love linguistics, and like that's what I'm minoring in, and it was just all about that.
And you think Bunny would be better
What?
at it? And you think Bunny would be better at it for
You'd
studying it
think,
for over
but
a decade?
he's dyslexic and ADHD and doesn't care. Speaking of Bunny, he
Yeah,
fights with Henry on page 212, and he calls him well, first of all,
yes.
he calls him a fag, but he also calls him a Nazi and then a dirty, lousy, cheapskate Jew. And I just think if you're gonna insult someone, I think you gotta pick if you're gonna insult them by calling them a Nazi or a Jew. I just, I really think you can't go for both back to back.
Hey,
Like,
when you're angry,
what did he
you
mean by
kind of
that?
just throw stuff out
you,
there.
you goddamn Nazi, you fucking Jew! Like, what? That's not comprehensible.
That doesn't make any
Bunny's not
sense.
the brightest, I think.
Are you
No,
just now getting
I've
that?
known, I've known. Can
Yeah. Bunny never redeems himself, yet you feel bad when he
I don't
dies.
feel bad yet.
Well, maybe you will.
It's even Richard is like kind of sad about it, and Richard is like, "Yeah, I hate him, but like, I also feel bad that he died." And it's like, he fucking kills him.
Well, just
I
wait
wonder who
till
kills
it
him. I feel like it's got to be Richard. I don't know though. That would be crazy. Cause
maybe
what's
we'll
the rest of the
never
goddamn
know.
book about? Um,
What is the rest of the book about?
can we
I
talk
don't
about my
even
two favorite
know!
parts of this chapter, other than the linguistics bit?
Can I just mention the
Yes.
worst part of this chapter, honestly? Okay. So personally, the worst part of this chapter is on fucking 225 when Bunny and Richard go over to the twins' apartment and
Oh my god,
Charles
this
isn't
part's so
there.
gross.
And Bunny walks in and Camilla's like, "Hey guys." And Bunny's like, he's like, "Why do you guys live together?" And she's like, "What? We've always lived together. We're fucking twins." And then Bunny's being fucking asshat like he is all the
Well, he's
goddamn
trying to figure out
time.
what bothers Camilla because
And
he's been able to figure out what
says,
bothers everyone else, and he hasn't been able to pinpoint what bothers her. And this is the thing, like the only
yeah,
thing that actually gets to her.
yeah. And and he's like, "So there's not much privacy." And she's like, "This is a two-bedroom apartment, like it's whatever." And he's like, "What happens when you get lonely in the night?" And she's like, "I don't know what you're saying." And he's
She
like,
handled it
"Yes, you
so
do.
well too.
It's convenient, you're just across the hall from each other." And he's like, "Sure, it's against the law or whatever, but like, it's up to you. You break one, you break another. It's whatever." And Richard's just like standing there, like just like trying to fucking blend in with the fucking wall. And Francis is also standing there for some reason, and he's just like chugging some liquor. And then Camilla's like, "You mustn't think I'm sleeping with my brother just because I won't sleep with you." And then Bunny laughs and is like, "You couldn't pay me to sleep with you, girly. Not for all the tea in China." And then she looked at him with no expression and then got up to go to the kitchen. And that part is
Mm-hmm.
so disgusting because it implies that there's incest going on. And I'm not gonna lie,
Well, they brought it up earlier when last chapter when Richard was like, "These are sexual rituals, right?" And Henry's like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever, anyway." And they just move past it, and I just think they moved past it really quick. That means the twins fucked.
well,
I
it doesn't mean they
guess.
could have like avoided each other, but they definitely it was like a it's like having a fucking two-man with your sibling, like that's weird. Um but like it's they will mention it again in the future. And it's so unfortunate because Camilla is not to blame. She is unfortunately a
Fuck, really?
victim. And Yes, and Camilla is like my favorite character, and I'm gonna say this now. I like wholeheartedly will stand by her being the most innocent character in this book. And I love her so much, and she has been through so much. And the fact that she is so traumatized. I don't even know, cuz like when she killed the farmer, it was like she went mute for 3 days and was stunned, and she was like not covered in blood, but her hair was drenched in it. So it's like how could that even happen, you know? But like also she's the only girl in a group of men, and they did a sex ritual repeatedly for weeks trying to get it to work. And she's for sure been passed around this group,
Mm,
except for Bunny, you know? Like, even Richard tries to get with her. And I'm just like, God, I love her so much. And I just want to heal her. But, oh my God. She's been through so much and she's gonna go through so much. And I feel so bad for her. But that part just sucks ass. It also makes me despise Charles.
that's crazy. Like, I didn't know if it was just bothering her because of the implication, even if it wasn't true, or if it was bothering her because it was true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's things in the later chapters that indicate that there is something going on.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, which is disgusting and unfortunate. Because like why else would Bunny bring it up, you know?
Would you like to hear my two favorite parts? Would you like to hear my two favorite parts?
What?
First of all,
Yes,
Francis
yes, yes.
confirmed gay. It's been implied he's gay. Richard says he has. Yeah, it's been implied he's
Confirmed
gay.
gay.
Richard is like, I have a gaydar, and he smells gay, and we know we know his first
He
line is him being
smells
like, "Will you sleep
gay.
with me?" But that could be banter. But it's confirmed on page 217. It just says nobody said anything about it ever, but we all knew he was gay. Talks about how he tried to he kind of flirted with
Oh
Richard,
yeah,
and Richard
yeah,
was like
yeah.
no, but kind of flustered about it, which I think is gay in Richard's part. And then Francis was like, haha,
Oh yeah, on
okay.
the boat.
But then that's the thing that Bunny picks on him for, because Bunny targets like something they're each most insecure about, and it's the fact that Francis is gay. But the book it goes into what like examples for everyone else, and the book doesn't even go into examples for this. It's like it's too horrible. Like he treated Francis the worst, and like I'm not even gonna tell you what he did to Francis, making fun of him being gay. Like it's too horrific, which sucks, and I feel very bad for Francis. Um, and my other favorite part is then the thing he
Yeah.
picks on with Richard is he can tell that Richard is like him, pretending to be richer than he is, or have any money when he doesn't have money at all. And he's pointing out that he's basically implying that Richard lied about what school he went to, which is true. Um, and I love that Henry defends him because
Hmm.
Bunny's like, "How come you're not in the yearbook?" And Henry had been pretending not to listen, which I think is sweet of him. And then, without turning around, he goes, "How do you know if he was in the yearbook or not?" And then Francis jumps in and also tries to defend him. And then, like, when Richard leaves the room, Francis is like angry at Bunny. And I just think it's really sweet that Francis and Henry are defending Richard while Bunny's being a dick to him.
Yeah, I love that part. Wasn't it also confirmed that Charles is like a
I
drunk
think
or
so.
something?
I think they talked about that. Now, immediately after that part, this is what I've been wondering as well, and Richard just comes out and says it. He says, "How was it that a complex, nervous, and delicately calibrated mind like my own was able to adjust itself perfectly after a shock like the murder, while Bunny's eminently more sturdy and ordinary one was knocked out of kilter. I think about this sometimes. Um, like, and then it goes on to be like, what is Bunny's goal here by being a dick to us and like blackmailing us? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Bunny's, first of all, Richard is like OCD as fuck, which I talked about last time. Like, Richard has a very dark and complex mind, and he's not phased at all by this murder. He's just like, okay, you killed a guy, and I don't care. And Bunny is just such a simple man, and he's like literally crashing the fuck out over this murder. And speaking of, a little bit later on page 230, it's so funny how much Richard is unfazed at the thought of killing Bunny as well. Like, Henry's like explaining his poison plan, and Richard's like, what are you gonna do? And Henry's like, what do you think? And he's just like, I don't,
I feel like everyone in this
right?
group just lacks a little bit of empathy, but all not because they're bad people, just
Like,
because they're like all
Henry,
neurodivergent
Henry's
in some
talking
way
about
or
like how he's gonna
another.
kill Bunny, and Richard's like, I don't think the poison is a smart plan. And he's not like, what the fuck, you're planning on murdering Bunny? Like, that's so serious. Like, he's just unfazed, and it's quite funny to me. Like, I just don't understand. I A couple more things on page two. You know how we had a library headcanon about Henry, about how he just goes to a library like one time and like steals a book
Yeah,
and
yeah,
never
yeah,
goes back. They talk about
yeah, yeah.
um he has the Arabic book and it's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
from William
yeah.
College Library, and Richard is like, I don't think he has borrowing privileges at the William College Library. Yeah,
He
and
also
I
stole the
thought, I
books
was
from
like,
that one
dude, this
shop
is
or
literally our
something.
headcanon coming to life right now. um I like the
That's so
quote on
funny.
page 255. It says, it's when they're planning on. I said this in my recap, kind of, but I just really love this quote. It's when Henry's like, this is why we have to kill Bunny in a way that looks like an accident, like the hiking thing. He says, what could possibly be better from our point of view than allowing Bunny to choose the circumstances of his own death? I thought that was just a killer line. Um, it, and finally,
Mm.
on page 259, when they're explaining why they have to kill Bunny ASAP, about how like the fact that he got drunk and told Richard, and it's like, oh shit, he could tell anyone else at any time now. Like, it says he's taken the first step on a downward slope. Now that he has, I feel that we're in for an extremely rapid progression of events. That the idea that they're like killing him in self-defense because he could tell someone reminds me a lot of um the prequel Hunger Games book. Like, it throughout that, what I really like about that book is throughout the book he kills three different people, and each time it's in self-defense, arguably, but each time it gets less and less in self-defense. Like, the first time it's like someone's literally attacking him, Snow, and he like literally like defends himself. And the second time he kills someone, it's because they could go and tell someone something that could get him in trouble. So he's like, oh, it was self defense because like I would get in trouble if he went and told someone, so I'm gonna kill him. And the third time, it was just like he was even associated with the guy. He was like, oh, this is dangerous for me. I'm gonna kill him. And it gets just the idea that you're killing someone to defend yourself because they could be going down a slippery slope that could harm you. It gets into like really gray area morally. And like that's the argument that Henry's making very
Yeah,
confidently, and I thought it was interesting, and it reminded me a lot of the Hunger Games prequel. Yeah.
I see. On
Hmm.
on that same page, 59, further down. This goes back to what I was saying about how
Hmm.
I feel like Richard's not a part of the group because Henry was like, "Okay, you can go now," and like fucking like shooed Richard away. And Richard's like, Do you want me to leave?" He's like, "You can stay if you want to, but like, there's no reason like for you to be here." He says, "I wanted to give you a rough idea of like what we're gonna do, but in a sense that the fewer details you know, the better." He yawned. There are some things you had to know, I suppose, but I feel like I've done you a disservice by involving you this far. And then, I like that, this is funny. He's like, Richard stood up, and then he goes, well. And then Francis raises an eyebrow, and he's like, wish us luck. And Richard claps awkwardly. I clapped him awkwardly on the shoulder and said, good luck. Charles, out of Henry's line of vision, caught my eye. He smiled and mouthed the words, I'll call you tomorrow. Did he call him
I don't know.
tomorrow? I don't think he ever did. I don't remember him. And then he goes off and runs into Camilla on her way home from her date with Cloak. And she's like drunk. And she's like, Cloak was nice. He bought me dinner and he bought me drinks that tasted like popsicles. And that was pretty cool. And then Richard's like, come home with me. I want you. I want you bad. I don't want you to go with them. I don't want you to go in there. And she's like, no, I gotta go. I gotta go. Go get the plan. And then she kisses him. And then they leave. They kiss twice. She gave me a cool soft kiss that tasted like popsicles. And then another kiss before she left. And then he's like, damn. Oh, I want to talk about when they're about to push him off the cliff. So Richard goes to the forest and is like, he like gets there and he doesn't see anyone, but he hears some like rustling and he realizes that someone's in there and he's just like, hey, and then everyone's like, what? Like, what the fuck are you here? And then like, Charles gets up and he's like, hi! And then like, he's like, what are you doing here? And then Henry's like, what the fuck are you doing here, dude? Like, why are you can't be, like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, Henry's like pissed off. And Richard's like, there's a party, like, he's not coming, guys. He's not coming. He's not gonna be here. And then Francis is like, how can I have a cigarette now since he's not even gonna be here? Can I have a cigarette? And then Henry's like, everyone just shut the fuck up. Like, everyone get fucking high. He's gonna be here. And she's like, no, he's not gonna be here. And then Camilla fucking is in a tree. She fucking climbs down from the tree and is like, oh my god, it's Sunday dinner. He's probably going to our house for Sunday dinner. Oh my god. And then they start thinking about what they're gonna make for dinner. And I'm like, I don't understand why they're planning about what they're gonna make for dinner because there's not
Because
gonna be
what?
any dinner. So I don't know why they're worried about that. Why they're worried about what they're making for dinner
Because if
because
they
there's
think
gonna
Bunny's
be no
not
dinner
coming
because
to the
Bunny's gonna be
woods, but
fucking
he's
dead.
gonna come for dinner.
Yeah, but they're not gonna have dinner. So he like they're arguing about that, and then Henry kind of just disappears, and is like, I'm just gonna go dig up some ferns for dinner. And they're all like bickering to each other, and Francis is smoking a cigarette, and then all of a sudden, Henry comes back and he's like, somebody's coming, and everyone's like, what do we do? And they're like, it's too late for us. They have a good like minute to hide in the bushes. But they decide to just stand there and stare at each other and are like, what are we supposed to do? And then they waste too much time. And Henry ends up like ditching them and hiding. And then everyone else just like pretends. I don't even know what they're like. It literally says, Richard's like, yeah, it says, Henry was like 30 feet away, safe at a shady margin of the woods. He waved at us impatiently, like he was waving for them to like come and like hide. And then Richard's like, I heard the sudden crunch of footsteps on the gravel and hardly aware of what I was doing, turned away and pretended to inspect the trunk of a nearby tree. Bro literally turned around and started staring and like picking at a fucking tree trunk, which I think is hilarious. Like, imagine just walking into like just like an opening in the forest and just seeing like all your friends there, and they're just like fucking prodding tree trunks and picking up flowers, but they look all so highly suspicious, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on right now? And Bunny walks in and is like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, is this a nature club meeting? And they're like, oh my god, hi, Bunny, what are you doing here? We didn't know you were gonna be here. Like, what the heck? What are you doing here? And Bunny's like drunk, essentially.
Because it makes it look like an
And
accident. He has
which
like
is
a
also helpful that he's drunk because that's
like
also
he
like,
literally
oh,
has
he
like a beer
fell off
can
the
with him,
cliff
right?
because he was drunk. Yeah, and he Bunny like looks at Richard and is like, I've been trying to call you, like, where the fuck have you been? And then Henry comes out and is like, he has a trowel. I don't know where the fuck he got a trowel from, but his hands are all dirty because he's been digging in the dirt. And he's like, oh my god, like, hey man. And Henry's like, oh, or Bunny's like, oh, everyone's here. Is this a fucking intervention? And Henry's like, yeah, something like that. And he like takes a step forward. And he's like, yeah, so like I suppose you can call it that. And then Bunny's like, one might call it that. And then Henry's like, yeah, one might, though
So
it's not the term
it
I
was
would
so
use
like suspense
myself.
building.
Um, yeah, and then Bunny's like, so what the fuck are you guys doing here? And then Henry's like, well, we're looking for ferns. And then he takes another step. So I just I just want to say that I believe the people closest to Bunny
Hmm.
are Richard and Henry. And I believe Richard's like literally right next to Henry because it says Bunny walked up and then Bunny started talking to Richard and it says, you people should do a lot of sneaking around in the woods these days, you know. He said, poking me in the ribs. So Bunny had to be standing right next to Richard
Hmm.
to be physically touching him.
Does Richard
And I just
is
wanted you
Richard
to
the one
keep
to
that
kill
in
Bunny?
mind.
Does that make him like part of the friend group?
I don't know.
My
I don't
prediction
know.
is that Richard is the
It's
one
just
to kill Bunny.
initiation. Me too.
I
But
shared
I
my favorite
actually had no
parts.
idea.
Right now, my favorite
I didn't think
characters
anyone
are
was.
Henry and then Francis. I quite like Camilla. I liked Charles up until this point, and then you kind of lore dropped on me. I knew
Yeah, that was a
something was gonna
spoiler I
happen
feel like I
because
had to say.
my ex's my ex has a friend from high school who's studying Greek in college right now, and I was like, I am so certain that she has read this book. Like,
Ew.
she would love this book. And so they texted and it turns out that they've read it 3 times. Um, and asked like who I liked right now, and this was when I was reading like chapter 4, and I was like, oh, I like Charles a lot right now. Like he seemed like he was the most polite, like to Richard and everything. And they were like, oh, that's not gonna last much longer. And I was like, the fuck you mean? What's Charles gonna do?
Yeah. 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 I don't think Charles
That's
kind of
so
goes
interesting.
downhill after the incident. Yeah. My favorite characters are Henry and Camilla. Camilla at the top. I kind of want to add a new list to the end of the episode. I want you to I want you to list who you think is
Ooh.
the most guilty and who's the most innocent. Like who's like the worst person and who's
Oh, I
like
interpreted those questions
the
differently
least
when you
worst
said
person.
guiltiest to innocent and worst person to least worst person, because I was like, oh, obviously Henry's very guilty because he literally murdered the first guy and planned the murder of the second guy. But then when you said like worst person, I don't think Henry's a bad person, even though he's like the most guilty. He's still like my favorite, and I think he's quite a good person despite being the most guilty. So that's really complex actually as a character, isn't it? I don't even know what to do with that.
Yeah, that's
So which
something.
one do you want me to do?
And then you have someone like
What
I
were you
feel like
saying? Someone
both.
like
You
who?
can make like a little Venn diagram. photograph thing. I feel like someone like Charles, who's like a bad person but is fairly
Yeah,
innocent in
I've
this
Camilla's
situation.
entirely innocent in both departments right now. She hasn't been involved really in anything, and also hasn't done anything that makes her a bad person. Bunny's a horrendous person, all things considered. I think he's a very mean person to everyone, but like, it's not like he's killed a man. um,
That's true. But I feel like
yeah, he's.
morally,
Oh my
he's
god.
very
Okay,
guilty.
Bunny's like the worst person here. Um, he's just a horrendous person. Uh, Charles, like you said, is fairly innocent, all things considered, but is also kind of a bad person. But he's so polite up until this point. He's kind of in the middle, I suppose. Francis is also fairly innocent and a good person as far as we know up until now. So it's Bunny's the worst. And then we have Charles.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I think
Julian
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 is
can also
grooming
be a part of
children.
this.
Not in a sexual way specifically, just in like a academic way. Just like in the same as Dr. Gall in
In
the Hunger Games
intellectual
prequel, in
sense.
my opinion.
Brainwashing these children to
Yeah,
become woke,
he's fucking weird.
ritualistic murderers.
Julian is quite guilty, really. I think he's at fault for all of this, and if he handled his pupils better, none of this would be a problem, I think. If you really think about it, he's not a good teacher. Um, so Bunny, then Julian, then
Yeah, yeah,
I. Unfortunately, I'm going to say Henry next, even though he's my favorite, because he I know he didn't mean to kill the
yeah,
first guy, and that's fine,
yeah.
but he is very much planning on killing a second guy. Um,
And he's
yeah,
very violent. Like, he's not afraid of being violent. And I feel like he kind of likes it, but also he has horrible
yeah.
anger issues that
Like, I
also makes him
understand why he
violent.
wants to kill Bunny, but this is the type of thing where you're like, oh, I want to kill the guy. It's not the type of thing that you actually follow through on. And he's ready to follow through on it. Um,
He
yeah,
doesn't want to
he
suffer
thinks
the
he's above consequences for
consequences.
his actions. So, Henry's next, then Charles, then Richard. It's not that Richard's done anything wrong specifically. I just don't like him as much as I think he's less good of a person than Francis and Camilla.
I feel like
But
he's guilty because he's not doing anything
well,
about
yeah, but
anything. He's joining
like you
in.
could say the same about Francis and Camilla.
Well, no, they were at the murder,
That would
though.
be
Like,
a shitty thing to
Richard could
do to
turn
turn your
everyone
friends in
in.
for accidentally killing someone.
But he's choosing. But are they friends? Because even Richard
Yeah,
questioned, like, am
I
I,
don't know.
like, are these people really my friends?
They're
Like,
the
who
only
are
friends
these
he
people?
has though.
He's
I
known them
wouldn't
for
if my
less than
friends
a year.
accidentally killed someone, I wouldn't turn them in.
They're not the only friends he
It's
has.
true.
He has, like, Judy and all the other normal kids. Like, these are freaks. Like, these are
He's
fucking
just
weirdos.
I just
And he
Richard
said,
is
yeah, those
so
are my
unfazed
people.
at both murders that I just feel like there's something wrong with him. Like there's something morally missing from Richard because of how unfazed he is. And maybe it's just because we see his inner monologue.
That's
Yeah,
why I
Richard
think
is
he's
so
fascinated
fascinated
by
by
these
these people
people.
that his moral code has gone out
Like,
the window, which is why he's next. Then Francis and then Camilla because they are lovely and haven't done anything wrong.
yeah,
Do you expect this ranking to change as I read the second half of the book?
yeah.
I made a pretty good ranking.
No, I don't think so.
I'm picking up the book, man. I'm understanding it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I want to close off this episode by just saying
Oh.
I found out that they
I
did
would
try to make this book into a
I would
movie
love to take a chapter of this book
twice,
and try and
maybe
write
three
it as a
times.
script for a TV show. I think that would be fun.
We could do that. I found out they tried to make it into a movie like right when it was published, a screenwriter bought it and was gonna make it into a
That's
movie.
eerie.
But then he died, and and it got put to the side. And then I think in the early 2000s, they tried to make it into a movie again, and Gwyneth Paltrow wanted to. They were producing it, so they were giving tons of money to make this movie happen. And she wanted to be Camilla, and her brother was going to play Charles, which would have been
That's
so
crazy.
horrible to watch. Um,
God.
but then their dad
Wait, why is
died,
this like cursed?
and
Why
so
is
they
this
they
cursed?
pulled out of the project, and then that got stopped. and then, um, and then, they made the Goldfinch into the movie, and that movie was a flop. I haven't seen it. Um, I'm currently reading The Goldfinch. Um, but I heard it was a flop and it did horrible. And so they're kind of like not deciding to make it into a movie anymore. But who knows? Who knows? I don't. But for a while, I
That's
think this movie is
crazy.
officially cursed with death. Yeah. Which is why I'm gonna keep saying Audible. Please make this into like a voice acting thing with a full score and sound effects and a narrator and voice actors for each of the characters. I don't need to see it. I just want to listen to it again. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of whatever this is. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed the other episodes. Hope you enjoy next episode. We'll be reading chapter 6, I think. Just chapter 6 or chapter 6 and 7. I don't know. Just chapter 6 because it's a big one and a lot of things happen. A lot of things happen, and then from then on, I believe, from 7 to the end, it's gonna get pretty fucking boring. I will tell you that. But we're gonna get through it. It's gonna be a little hard, but we're gonna get through it. It's currently 3 a.m. On the East Coast, and I am gonna go home and go to bed. Good night. Good morning tomorrow. Why do they call what is what is the origin of the word tomorrow? Because it's like tomorrow. Is it like saying like a cheers tomorrow? Because tomorrow means like today. But then today is like today, like today is like tomorrow. Why isn't it? And what is yesterday? Like what is yester? What the fuck is yester? Yester is a weird ass word. Is it not? This is crazy. Look up that.